Hey everyone. So we wanted to do a video, basically talking through my chapter 4 raid stuff. Somebody asked in the guild, basically, I have some different kind of unique setups that I do for chapter 4, and I score pretty well on it. So I was just asked, basically how I do it, and I thought it might be kind of fun to basically just do a video walkthrough of some of that. I'm not a YouTube star, so this is going to be informational and just talking about my thought process. It's not going to be a bunch of infographics and slide transitions and really cool sunglasses that I know Sep from our guild really loves. So, um, with my chapter 4 right now, basically what I'm looking at down here is I'm trying to push my team up to 2 Gandalf shards. So I'm at the point now with my light spend account where I can get 6 from the other 3 chapters, and so I'm just kind of slowly working on trying to get more than just 1 shard right now on chapter 4. So that's 2,525,000. Haven't been able to quite pull it off yet, but I did want to talk through kind of where I'm at with it and really just sort of talk about, like I said, my thought process and sort of how I approach my teams. So, in particular, I want to talk about this team here. So, initially, I was running the Rohan 3 with Mary and Pippin. I was doing pretty well on it. Decided at some point that I really needed a little bit more of a boost. So I started putting Gaz and Ballin in. You know, we all kind of know Ballin gets a lot of points off his cleanse, and also, the cleanse is helpful to remove the blind and the burn on that. And then Gaz for me is a real DPS heavy hitter on my team. So I ended up being able to do 900,000 on this, and that worked pretty well. And then I essentially applied some of the same concepts with that team over to my free to play account, where I'm also able to get 900 on this as well. So, but I use Mary and Pippin in that setup. With with this team, I'll just go through the footage a little bit. I do feel, because I can do it on my free to play, that the Rohan 3 are really, really great for this chapter, and are really just a great free to play team all the way around. Elves require a lot of unlock stuff, although I think a lot of free to play players are getting there with them. So let me just talk through this a little bit. The setup on this is really reliant at this point for me on putting Limbus on Aothane, which is something I've been using. I first discovered using it in Arena, and then kind of applying some of the same concepts from that to this chapter. So, and it's basically, here I'm going to open with Eowyn's her cleanse, where she's going to wipe all these blinds out, and then that'll basically help. So with Lembas on Aothane, he can open with this special 2 that applies counterattack on everyone. And this is just where you do so much damage. So you can kind of see the Balrog's at, 90-ish%. And then just going to do a little damage here. Get my summon guy out. And after the summon attacks, so the Balrog does his first AoE, which doesn't apply any more blinds. It just does the burn. So boom, right there. So now all these guys are going to counter. None of them are going to be blinded. And on top of that, Aothane will apply his expose from his basic attack on the counter. So let me just go back a tiny bit here, because I feel like this is a key point of this strategy. So when he drops, right there, okay. Now you'll see in the footage, and this is something that I don't quite understand about this game, but there is something involved with the way characters are positioned. And so I don't know, when it comes to applying Banes on counterattacks like this, if the position matters. But I do see that on this animation, he goes first. So he does his counterattack first. the exposed lands, and then everyone else basically hits. I don't know. Again, if somebody has better knowledge of this, they can let me know, because I don't know if that matters. If the but I think there is some turn order stuff happening. So anyway, you can see that happens. Everyone counterattacks, basically gets flinched right away, and we're already a third of the way through. And we haven't even gotten anywhere near the shadow or the flame form. So the other thing I want to talk about, that I do to work this right is, for the most part, I save Ugluck, or not Ugluck, Gaz's special one for whenever the Balrog has counterattacks, that I can dispel with that, since it removes. And then the other thing that I tend to do on this quite a bit is I'm mostly attacking on Aethane using his special 2 when it's up, and then saving his special 1 for only when I'm blinded, for 2 reasons. First of all, his basic always applies that expose, or has a chance to. So I'd rather have expose as much up as possible on the Balrog as I can. And then saving the special 1, which is his provoke, for whenever I'm blinded, so that I don't waste an attack and basically get the shadow stacks. So I'm not going to finish the video. I do have that up on my YouTube if you want to go through the full footage with some garbage YouTube music that exists. And then we'll put just briefly on this so you can see it. Essentially the same opening with Merry and Pippin, and this is on my free-to-play account. So this is very, very friendly for pretty much most players. And I do pretty much advise at this point, just based on my experience, that Rohan is kind of the best free-to-play team that you can get. And he actually applied the expose just now. So as soon as counter comes up, you can see not quite as much damage. This isn't as DPS heavy a team. A lot of the points come from, Pippin basically on this one. And there is, of course, the usual element to RNG. So, whoever gets punted here, ideally, obviously, you want the summon to get hit when the Balrog does his nuke attack. But yeah, so that's it. Then I do kind of go through at the end of those 2 videos, my setups on these, the glyphs and all that. So free to play, I think I'm mostly stopping at 7. The one thing I did want to talk about briefly, so in terms of gear, go to my live account here. So in terms of gear, I do on my light spend have Gaz and Eomar at gear 10. This, I feel, was a colossal mistake. I feel like 9 is perfectly acceptable for the most part, since I'm not really pushing difficulty 5 on the raids. I mainly did this for arena purposes, because I was fighting in Champions League without Rivendell for quite a while, and so I wanted to get them up as highly as possible, because I'm still using Gaz in arena, just not Eomer anymore. And so that was keeping me competitive. Once glyphs hit, I really felt that gear 10 was kind of pointless. I feel like the glyphs give you enough of an edge, and the cost of that gear level is just astronomical. So since then, I pretty much stopped going that far with it. So you can see, like, where everyone else, I'm pretty much stopping at 8 on here. So one thing I want to talk a little bit about these teams, just generally speaking, I guess my approach is, and why I have the weird setups that I do to try and push out higher score. So I kind of feel like, once I reach 900,000 with the team, so going back here, so I like to start trying to figure out, what is really the driving force of that team. So I think people get really hung up in this game on full synergies. So, it's easy to think, well, you know, I want to run 5 Rohan characters because all the Rohan are supposed to work together. Well, as we kind of, I think they're a great example of a team that really runs on 3 characters, and then the other 2 characters are kind of superfluous. And then, um, I think for the most part, most teams really thrive on 2 or 3 characters, and so really trying to figure out who are the key components of a team and then kind of extracting the other characters out of them so that you can maximize other points. So, um, to kind of explain this, I was running the elves with Naramiri and then prior to that Ballin, which I think is where most people start on their scoring 900,000 on this chapter. Um, I wanted to move Ballin to my Rohan team to see if I can push them to the 900, which is how I got them out of that 7-hole slump. And then now that I have that team running 900 and this team that was running 900, I was thinking, okay, well, if I can pull Naramiri off and then get her onto a different team where she can provide some points and some healing, what is basically the minimum that I need? And so just kind of through trial and error, I figured out, well, these 4 are kind of key to scoring 900,000 on that chapter. All I need is a little maybe extra DPS or a little healing, and then it was just a matter of who else did I have in kind of my roster. And Dunhar kind of fit the bill on that because Isengard just doesn't really do that good in this chapter. And so I'm able to actually get 900 putting Dunhar in here. And we can see this interface, I swear. All right. So he's nothing special. He's 60, I think I think I finally did put him to gear 9, but he's actually only got 3 on all those abilities. So it's basically 4 elves plus Dunhar with nothing cool on glyphs and junk abilities. So all I really need was an extra healing. And so that, like I said, that freed up Naramiri to basically run on a different team where I'm trying to push just a little higher. So that kind of hopefully answers some of the questions that I got asked in Guild about why am I doing the weird things that I do with my teams. It's really just trying to figure out, the puzzle that is my team and what works, and if it's already working, what's the lowest investment I can make in a particular team to kind of max out my score a little bit. The other thing, I guess I just want to talk a little bit about today since I'm in here. Just kind of going with that, the idea of synergies in this game and, the necessity of them. Let me go to the raid. So I'm actually been really happy with how I've been scoring out on my chapter 3. I basically just got 2 teams out to 1.5 million on this. So, oh, by the way, I do have to point out Waterhouse's scores, so he knows he's doing amazing. Waterhouse, great job, man. Last time I kind of glossed over his score, so. All right, so Waterhouse. Look at that. See, 1.5 king. So with chapter 3, what I'm actually able to get 1.5 out on this team right here, which I've replicated on my free to play account as well. So again, I feel like that's pretty accessible for a lot of people. And that's just a matter of, really thinking through sometimes the mechanics of a particular chapter. So with 3, there's one approach, which is basically, using immunity to really bolster how you get through your capture and mark stacks. And so I think most people are familiar with that because when they score out on Rivendell, they're pretty much putting Arwen in the lead spot, who takes the first mark, and then she does her special 2, puts immunity on, and then she can just basically roll through a full cycle of orcs without taking any more capture stacks. Without immunity, What you really want to do is a combination of cleanse and also rotating around the mark. So for this team, I like to have what is essentially 1, 2, 3 ways to do provoke, and then Arwen can provide the cleanse, and then Eomer does a lot of killing on this chapter. The what I like to do is similar to where I think people use Arwen, where they put her in kind of that center spot on the raid, so that she's more likely to take the mark first. To do the same thing with Eomer, and I like him to take the mark first on this team because as soon as he takes it, pretty much I think it's Ugluk that then can pull it right off, and he might have something like three-ish capture stacks. At that point, then as we go through the counter, you want him to make the kills to reduce that. Arwen will additionally go through and cleanse that down. So that kind of reduces him throughout, while the other three are basically passing that buck back and forth. And eventually they'll get captured and die. But, you know, just I think it's important to really understand the mechanics of how the chapter works, as well as how your characters can work within it, than necessarily thinking, oh God, I got to have 5 elves. I have to have 5 Rohirrim. I have to have 5 Haradrim. And there are chapters that, that does make sense in, but, I like to kind of run my teams all over the place and mix them up per chapter. So, um, chapter 1 is another example of where I'm actually using Eowyn. Um, I can't even explain this one, but I use her in difficulty 4 in chapter 1, along with kind of an elf mix up. This has actually changed a little bit over time. I'm trying to figure out once glyphs came, they made some adjustments to that, so it's been a lot harder to score diff 4. But look at this amazing score at the top. So anyway, I wanted to just kind of, I guess, like I said, talk through some of these things a little bit. And I'm not perfect at this game. I'm still learning. So if anybody has any suggestions for how I can improve, I'd love to hear them. And if you have anything you'd like me to cover more in depth, I'd be happy to.